I think you remember when they were saying that if the Unit 5 tax referendum, if that referendum passes, then that means that there's going to be better student to teacher ratios. I think you remember Unit 5 saying that. If you don't, it's on their website. You can go check it out. If they haven't taken it down, it says that if the referendum passed, that would mean that there would be better student to teacher ratios. But apparently, the case isn't so for Cedar Ridge Elementary School. So Corey and Lucas, they're very upset about class sizes for their first grader at Cedar Ridge Elementary School, and their parents of a first grader at that school. I'm going to get into that story here in the 6 o'clock hour because I think it's important. It's all about Unit 5, and there was a note sent home in the backpack of the student. No email sent to the parents, nothing like that. It was a little note that they sent home with the first grader in his backpack. And the parents were checking out the backpack, and then they pull out this document. And the document, well, it says that they're having a hard time uh, limiting the class size. So here it says, right here, I've got the document in my formerly nicotine stained fingers. I've got this right here. It says, as the district has monitored class size during registration and at the beginning of the school year, it's come to our attention that the first grade numbers at Cedar Ridge have recently increased beyond our expectations. Oh boy. Due to building constraints and recent difficulty filling teaching positions, we are unable to add an additional first grade section at this time. Ooh, so what am I supposed to do as a parent? What can I do, Unit 5? Well, they tell you. Therefore, to reduce the first grade class size at Cedar Ridge, we're looking for volunteers to attend first grade at Sugar Creek Elementary or Fairview Elementary for the 2023-2024 school year. Ooh, I've got more on this. I've got more, but good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. It's a Friday. You can always see me live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Share this out with your normie friends. It's so important that we get this message out and the news of the day out there. I've got some lighter news stories for you, but cutesy time is over. Okay. Cutesy time is over. I've got more news. I mean, just a huge news day yesterday. We had the invasion of the USA. We've got that to talk about because Donald Trump laid out a plan, an actual plan to crush Joe Biden's border crisis. And then Ken Paxton, he actually got on Tucker Carlson on Twitter, well, X now. Ken Paxton reveals to Tucker that the Biden administration sent their little lawyers and they were actually a part of his impeachment investigation in Texas. I'm going to play some clips from that interview because I think it's important. And today we've got to talk about J.B. Pritzker, Simpy, because he was on the stage with the Michigan governor, Gretchen Whitmer. Then we've got Hillary Clinton up there, and he's sitting there and he's talking about how he made it easier to kill babies here in the state of Illinois after last year's U.S. Supreme Court decision to put the issue back to the states. What did JB do to make it to celebrate really killing babies? Because that's truly what this is. It's extremist, and we're going to go through JB's extremist abortion policies today because he was on stage with Hillary Clinton gloating about it. So we'll get into it here on the Morning Buzz. Text in at 309-451-9299. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Kat Peterson 929. Just type it into the search bar. Okay, let's circle back to Corey and Lucas Miles because there are a couple of parents at Cedar Ridge Elementary. And I told you about how Unit 5 is having an issue with class sizes. So they sent home a piece of communication. It's a document, and they put it in a 6-year-old's backpack, and they expected it to get to parents. I don't know if it's really that big of an issue. I would say that it's probably not that big of an issue if you're going to stuff a document into the kid's backpack and then not send out an email or anything. You're just going to stuff this document into the kids' backpacks and then expect it to land into the parents' hands because they're not making this decision, right? To stop going to school at Cedar Ridge and to transfer schools over to Sugar Creek Elementary or Fairview Elementary. They're not going to be making that decision. Why? Why wouldn't they email the parents about it? Why would they just have this printed document and stuff it into the backpack of one of these kids? What's really concerning is what the document says. They say that they're struggling due to building constraints and difficulty filling this teaching position. This is a story that I've got to do some more digging. When did they post this job for this first grade teacher? Because that's the solution here is to get a teacher in there to reduce the class sizes. You guys got a bunch of money from the tax referendum, and you said on your website, I'm just going to read it directly off of their website. It says if the referendum passes, that means better student to teacher ratio for academic success, resources in supportive support services. So I'm sorry. I thought the referendum money was supposed to address these large class sizes that you guys were having an issue with. Apparently not. And I really like what Lucas says here in a letter that he addressed to the Unit 5 school board members and to administration there. He says this, did it not get directly sold to the community as a way to lower class sizes? It was brought up several times in the numerous presentations on the referendum that we attended. At no point during the referendum discussions was it ever mentioned to us that in order to have our child enjoy the benefit of a regular size classroom, not even a small classroom by standard conventions. So we're talking about class size room, sizes of the classroom, and smaller class sizes, the better. The smaller the class size, the better. There's been several studies that suggest that smaller class sizes are better. Uh, and I believe in smaller class sizes. Hell, I believe in maybe 2, 3, maybe the 2 or 3 kids that you've got, and homeschool them, right? I think that that would be the best option for them. But the smaller, the better. Would be required to provide our town transportation. So he says we weren't. It was never mentioned to us that in order to have our kid enjoy the benefit of a regular size classroom, not a large size classroom, not a small size classroom, just a regular size, that we would be required to have our own transportation to get them to another school across town. Of course not. No, it wasn't pitched to you that way. No, 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 no. And I want to point this out that they upped all of their salaries. They upped the superintendent's salary. They upped the teacher's salary, which is on average, with the state of Illinois. I think it's a little bit lower for, the average salary in the state of Illinois, but then you factor in benefits, time off, they get vacations off. I would say that they're paid pretty dang well. They start out at least 40,000, and then it increases, to over 42,000 by 2027. I don't know why they're paid not like 50,000 or something like that because that's pretty much what I hear, teachers are getting paid in other states. I think that's very, very, on par with the average salary in Illinois. This is consistent with the average teacher salary in Illinois. So I don't know why they're having difficulty filling the position, if the salary is up there. I mean, this is an average teaching salary in the state of Illinois. Um, I don't know. I've got no idea why they're having an issue. Maybe it's because people are sick of the indoctrination that or the teachers unions that force you, as an educator to withhold crucial information about children and their gender identities. You're instructed to obtain written consent from a 5-year-old if he is questioning his gender, if he thinks he's a girl, if she thinks he's a boy, you have to get written consent from that student in order to disclose that questioning gender identity to the parent. You can't tell the parent that little Timmy wants to go by Tammy in the classroom as an educator. And maybe that's like a big moral issue that 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 people don't want to get into education anymore because it's all you've got edicts placed on you by the teachers union. Of course, I'm talking about District 87, the BEA. They sent out an email saying, "Hey, you need to get written consent from the students if you want to disclose their gender identity to their parents, because we're going to assume that the parents are going to be abusive and not affirm their identity." And yeah, we know best. We know best. The parents, they're stupid. Let's pit the child against the parent. Anyway, maybe that's why they're having a difficult time filling the position. But this is what's juicy, okay? Um, and he called it before she even said this. So the Unit 5 superintendent, Kristen Weigel, she tells us that part of the problem at Cedar Ridge is that the district can only offer early enrollment to parents, but they can't require it. So consequently, people being people, many parents do not enroll their children until it's time for school to start. Okay, so in a way, that's almost placing the blame on parents. um, I like what Lucas says here in his letter that he addressed to the Unit 5 school board. He says, "Why does Unit 5 fail to properly plan how many students will attend their schools? If it's true that you're blaming the parents for not registering on time, what actions did you take last school year and over the course of the summer to get the word out?" That's a good question. Our family registered on time. Our family did. And yet we're the ones being forced to accept an absolutely terrible choice, a huge class size in a Title I school, or drive our kid clear across town so that way he can enjoy a regular sized classroom. Yeah, these are huge questions. And the district, it wasn't like they weren't aware of this the enrollment numbers, because the district even admits that Cedar Ridge was on the bubble. That's their language here, and I'm quoting them, "on the bubble" regarding the first grade classes, and would need a that would be needed, but felt like it would be all right. They knew that there might have been an issue, but they felt like it was gonna be okay. Unfortunately, more students were enrolled as the school year approached than they had projected. So, yeah, parents registering their kids late, things like that. That's parents being parents, that's people being people. I remember my mom, she was always last to register, register us. Okay. Life gets crazy. And we were in a lot of extracurriculars over the summer, doing Bible school, all kinds of stuff over the summer that my parents, they just forgot sometimes, or they just waited until the end of uh, the summer to register us. But that doesn't mean that the district shouldn't respond. They knew that Cedar Ridge was on the bubble regarding these first grade classes, but they felt it was gonna be all right. Hmm. Well, I'm with you, Lucas. Why did you not properly plan for this? I mean, you had all this money via the tax referendum. And why can't the student to teacher ratio be better? Because on your website it says if the referendum passes, that means, and I'm quoting here, better student to teacher ratio for academic success. Well, it passed, and here we are. 309-451-9299. You can go ahead and text me. That's our text line. You can also see me live in the studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I'm going to be right back. We got to talk about the invasion at the border. Yes, Donald Trump, he has laid out a plan to crush Joe Biden's border crisis. And I'm very excited to tell you the details of that plan on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Good morning. If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. Jacqueline, she's up this morning. Failure everywhere to failure everywhere where you see Democrats in control. Every time. It's not funny anymore. You support Democrats, you support this failure. Yeah. So the Unit 5 school board, a lot of them who got in are Democrats or at least backed by the teachers union. You've got Kelly Pyle, Mark Adams, a couple of others, and they all got in. And we're starting to see failures. Jacqueline, as you point out, Democrats who get in fail. I mean, it's time and time again. This is a failure on the Unit 5 school district's part. They didn't did they properly plan? I mean, I saw a few Facebook posts reminding people to, I mean, did they advertise, "Hey, go out and register"? Did they dump money into advertising, "Hey, parents, this is time. Please register"? Did they tell parents that, "Hey, we're looking at Cedar Ridge right now. We're kind of on the bubble when it comes to class sizes and enrollment numbers, and, this is on our radar. Um, but we think it's gonna be okay if you register early. If you register early, everything will be alright." Did they tell parents that? They could have sent out maybe an email, "Hey, register your kids early. We're looking at enrollment numbers, and we wanna make sure our projections are correct. The earlier you register, we can factor that into our projections." So, yeah, Jacqueline, you're exactly right. You're gonna start to see failure. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. Okay, it doesn't matter if you get this tax referendum, this tax money, that money, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if there's incompetent people or if there's Democrats, I'm going to be honest with you, in those positions, it will fail. Doesn't matter how much money you throw at it, it's going to fail. Let's talk about the invasion at the invasion of the USA. Um, 500 migrants illegally crossed over the border on this past Sunday alone. The alien invasion continues. Joe Biden has let in 500,000 illegal immigrants into the country and has done nothing. There's no executive order, there's no legislation that he's signed that addresses the invasion at the southern border. And he won't, because this is all by design. He wants the country to have all of these illegal immigrants and all of the pictures, the videos. These are not women and children. These are not people who are fleeing religious persecution. They are fleeing crappy economies. And I get it. I understand the desire to be in a better place economically. I think about moving down to the South every single day because it's better there economically, than the state of Illinois, and that's just factual, okay? And I'm not alone in that because you look at the state of Illinois, there's a mass exodus, and they've all fled to Florida, okay? The numbers don't lie. People have fled to southern states from the state of Illinois for better economies. I think about it all of the time. However, there's a process, and if you don't go by this process, and if you don't um, come here legally, then all of a sudden this place isn't great, and this better place doesn't exist anymore. Okay, and I know this to be true. I've talked to illegal immigrants here. Um, and I call him an illegal immigrant. He was there or here on some sort of work visa or something like that. You're an illegal immigrant because the way he came here, and I talked to him, he's a Romanian refugee, and it's illegal what he did. He broke federal law, and he claimed asylum. So he was an asylum seeker. So he would say that he's a refugee, and that he came here, applied for asylum, and got asylum here in the United States. See, the thing about the international law when it comes to immigration is that you have to apply for asylum in the country that you wind up in first. So in this gentleman's, and this is the case for a lot of immigrants, what they do, they go to Spain or they go to a different country and then they fly out of that country and then get to America. It's never a direct path, because that's very hard to do in some of these countries, Ukraine, Romania. So they're all congregating in a place like Spain, uh, Germany, other countries. They go to a different country and then they come here. That's breaking international law if you seek asylum in the United States and you were in a country that was different of yours, and you fled your country to this other country that's Spain. You had to seek asylum in that country, but no, that's not what they're doing. They're going country to country to country. All of them, if they come through the Mexico border, okay, if they come in through Mexico and that's what they're doing in these other countries, because that's the weak point. Okay, so from other countries like Romania, they'll come in via Mexico. And Mexico is a country, they should seek asylum in Mexico. However, they don't do that. They cross illegally and they get here in the United States and then they apply for asylum. That's breaking international law. That is not the way you're supposed to do it. You are an illegal immigrant. You got here illegally by crossing that border. Um, so we're going to talk about the border crisis. Ken Paxton also revealing on Tucker Carlson that Joe Biden and his lawyers were part of this impeachment investigation. Good morning. This is the morning buzz, and I like doing some good news. Try to step away from all of the crazy. We do have a lot of numbers for you. 500,000 immigrants. That's how many Joe Biden has let come in. This is an alien invasion into the country. Just 500 immigrants, migrants crossed illegally over the border on Sunday alone. That's 500 immigrants um, crossing illegally on Sunday, this past Sunday. But don't worry, Trump has got a plan to crush this attack on the border. I'm going to lay this out for you and talk about what Donald Trump laid out. And then Ken Paxton also revealing that Tucker Carlson, or revealing to Tucker Carlson that Joe Biden actually had his little minions, his lawyers, and sent them out there to be a part of this impeachment investigation in Texas, which is huge news. I'm going to be chatting about that. Governor Jellybean, he was with Hillary Clinton, Hillary, and Gretchen Whitmer. Gretchen Whitmer, I believe, is the governor who had, and correct me if I'm wrong, a Fauci pillow and held it up very proudly. Her pillow actually had the face of Fauci on it during the pandemic. But he was up there on stage with the Clinton Foundation and he was talking about how he made access to killing babies so much more eh, accessible here in the state of Illinois after the Supreme Court decision to bring the issue back to the states. And he's sitting there gloating about killing babies. And I think it's important that we chat about that and go through everything JB Pritzker has done when it comes to abortion. Um, we'll get to all of that, but first, some good news. Cassie and her boyfriend, Alex, they were waiting in Cassie's car near the beach in New Jersey. So that's when they saw two people struggling in a rough ocean current. Okay, so this is a story out of New Jersey. It's a good news story. So strap in, grab the kids, have a cup of coffee. Listen, Cassie and Alex happened to be surfers. So they grabbed their surfboards and then headed out into the water. A man and a woman who appeared to be in their 70s had their hands up and they were clearly stuck in this rip current. If you've ever been stuck in a rip current, it's kind of tough to get out. There's a certain way you got to get out. You got to swim diagonally. I've been stuck in a rip current. I'm a surfer myself. I used to surf a little bit in the summers when I was growing up, but Cassie, she jumps out and she helps the woman onto her board. She jumps off of the board, and then Alex grabbed the man and helped him swim back to shore. The man was still struggling a bit once they got onto the beach. So a stander stepped in and started to help carry the man to safety until he regained some of his strength to stand. Both the man and the woman, they were really rattled, but they were so thankful, to be saved from this danger. Uh, The adventure ended without injury, as the paramedics arrived soon after the rescue to make sure everybody was okay. So that's an incredible story. I mean, there's really good people out there, and Cassie and Alex, they're surfers. They saw what was going down, and they didn't think twice about. They're not first responders. They're just average people, and they saw something, and they said something, and they said, "You know what? We're going to get on our boards, and we're going to go save those people." They're not lifeguards, they're just average people who were there, for a beach day. So, I don't know, have you ever been caught in a rip current? I know you live landlocked, but maybe you've gone on vacation and gotten stuck in a rip current. I can't remember, but I was in lifeguard camps growing up, surf camps, things like that, and I think that they always told us to swim diagonally at a diagonal, to try to get out of that rip current. So I don't know. It's a good news story, though. I'll be back. We've got so much to get to today. The Trump plan to address this invasion at the Mexico border. Another thing I wanted to tell you, today's National Ice Cream Cone Day. We're not giving up on summer just yet. Okay. So yes, I will be getting some ice cream probably today. I have a lot of ice cream. I'm a sucker for ice cream. Been really into froyo. Froyo is pretty good. 309-451-9299. Text in, be a part of the show. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for joining. I appreciate it. Nothing will be resolved unless the border is 100% shut down and everyone crossing is arrested and brought to justice. Exactly. Um, Anybody who crosses, like I said, from Mexico into the United States, they have violated federal law. A lot of these illegal immigrants are seeking asylum or trying to be a refugee. And what international law says is, hey, you have to seek asylum in the country that you first get into. Now, if you're a Mexican immigrant, right, and you cross the border and you live in Mexico, then the first country that you get into and is obviously the United States, and you might be able to get an asylum status that way. However, that's not like the only type of immigrant coming over the southern border. There's Romanians, there's Ukrainians, there's everybody. Everybody's coming over that southern border because they know it's a weak point. And 500 in just one day crossed over illegally and walked over. That's not counting people in other sides of the border. That's not counting the people from Canada. We're just talking about the southern border. Okay, we had 500 cross that southern border on Sunday in just one day. And overall, we're looking at about 500,000 immigrants that Joe Biden has let in to the country. I mean, how are we going to feed them? Where are they going to work? And the funny thing is these people aren't fleeing religious persecution. They're not fleeing war torn countries, maybe in the case of Ukraine, but they're not fleeing um persecution in any kind of way. They are coming here because they want better economic opportunity. Okay, and I know this to be factual because I talked with some immigrants, and he sat there and he said, you know, as a mechanic, I make like $300 a month in Romania, and I hear you guys make $1,000 a week. And he goes, I want some of that. So he's on the street corner begging people for money, and he's trying to make his way here in the United States. And here's the thing about that, though, if everybody comes here for economic opportunity, this place is not going to be the place of economic prosperity very long. Okay. This better place doesn't exist anymore if everybody flees here because of their crappy economics elsewhere. Um, okay. It only works because we have the right amount of jobs, the right amount of food for the people who live here. So one thing that I want to talk about too are the cartels. and how much money they're making off of this. So when I talked to this Romanian immigrant, that was one thing I asked him was, "Hey, how'd you get across? Did you drive across? Were you with anybody?" And he talked about a man who was a Mexican man. He said he was a big man with tattoos. And he said that he had to pay $3,000 a head. So the Romanian refugee had to pay for himself, for his wife, and for his baby. $3,000 each. That's incredible. And then you start to think about this and you're like, okay, this doesn't make sense. He says that he wants a better place for for economic opportunities. He's fleeing his country because of the crappy economics in his country, Romania. He just spent 3 times 3, that's 9 grand. He spent 9 grand getting to America. What if he were to keep that money, stay in his country, and and not waste it? Because essentially, I mean, I even asked him, I said, "Would you have done it differently?" And he goes, "I wouldn't have done it." That's what he said to me. He says, "I wouldn't have come to this country had I known, it would have been this hard making it, in the country because now I'm panhandling. I threw all my eggs into this basket because I was told that the United States is the place to go for all of this economic opportunity." But he goes, "Nobody has money to give me. I'm out here panhandling and nobody gives me money." And he goes, "Nobody has cash on them." That's what he said. He goes, "Nobody has cash on them. They all have credit cards." And I'm like, "Yep." So when you talk about this great economic opportunity that you fled your country from, or fled your country for, yeah, I don't know what the hell you're talking about because a house here in Bloomington Normal runs you minimum $300,000 about. And I mean, I don't know what I mean, you could have saved your $9,000, and I would imagine $9,000 stretches pretty far in a place like Romania. Oh, man, and these cartels, they're making $13 billion a year smuggling immigrants and illegals into the United States over that southern border. We're gonna be back talking about the invasion, plus, John Fetterman, I haven't gotten to talk about this week. I figured I'd chat about John Fetterman, who decided to dress like a mechanic for the Senate hearing yesterday. And he went on a 3-minute rant about how he no longer has the ability to process language. I'm going to play that audio because it's bizarre. And actually, our buddy Dick Durbin, who's a senator here in Illinois, disagrees with John Fetterman and this whole dress code thing. Think it's interesting? I'm gonna play it. This is the only time where I think that Democrats don't agree on an issue. Otherwise, they're like lock and step. They agree with each other. So John Fetterman, he kind of looks like this little mechanic. He's in like some sort of sweats and like this weird shirt, and he's at the Senate hearing yesterday. And then he goes on like this rant for about 3 minutes, and he talks about why he can no longer process language, and he no longer has the ability to fully process language. And I don't know, I've got to play this 3-minute rant for you because whew, um I don't know how this guy is a senator. I'm going to just say it. I don't know why he's a senator. He's not capable of being a senator. In fact, I don't think he's capable to be by himself or to take care of himself. I think that he needs like constant care. That's what I'm going to say about John Fetterman. And actually, our buddy Dick Durbin, he's a senator here in the state of Illinois. He's speaking out against the dress code change. So Chuck Schumer, he actually implemented this dress code change um, specifically for John Fetterman, okay? So he quietly changes this dress code, and actually, we've got Senator Joe Manchin, Dick Durbin. They're not very happy about the dress code change. So this might just be the only thing that Democrats disagree on is this dress code change. So this is a full-blown bipartisan problem for the Democrat, Senate Majority Leader, Dick Durbin. So we're gonna chat about that. Plus, I can't believe it, Karen Jean-Pierre, she's the black lesbian. I have to tell you that she's black and that she's a lesbian because she thinks that that is the most crucial information about herself because she talks about it all of the time. So it's only fair that I refer to her as the black lesbian press secretary, Karen Jean-Pierre. She flipped out because she wouldn't call what's happening at the southern border a crisis. So Peter Doocy says, "What would you call it when 10,000 illegal immigrants flood the southern border a day? A day. What would you call it?" And she just flips out. I've got to play that audio for you. Coming up in just a bit, we are going to be talking about Governor JB and how he was celebrating abortions here in the state of Illinois with Hillary Clinton and Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So let's first talk about Trump's plan to crush the attack on the border. So there's an alien invasion, I'm sure you know, that Joe Biden has let in 500,000 illegal immigrants into our country. Here on the Morning Buzz, I've told you about the illegal immigrants that actually kill and stab their girlfriends. They're here illegally. They're here on things like DACA and they overstay their DACA status. They wind up in our prison system, the Illinois Department of Corrections. I'm talking about Gabriel Calixto, who I believe is still at large. The Springfield police won't tell me if he's at large, which is concerning. I've called several times, placed uh, a voicemail after voicemail. They won't tell me if this guy's still at large. From what I can tell via their databases, he hasn't been arrested or detained in any kind of way. But Gabriel Calixto, he's accused of stabbing this young girl out of Springfield, Illinois. And it was his girlfriend at the time. The guy has a record of kidnapping other girlfriends of his from like 2018. He's served in prisons here in the state of Illinois. Don't know how this guy was able to be here in the state, let alone the United States, after a record like that, after kidnapping a girl. and I just don't know. I don't know how he was able to stay. 2023. I mean, this story happened in the summer of 2023. She lost her life, and he's at large. Authorities think that he went back down to Mexico, but who knows? Anyway, that's just one example of the illegal immigrants. The type of illegal immigrant that I'm talking about here. These are not women, these are not children, these are not people who are fleeing religious persecution. These are people who are fleeing crappy economies, military-aged men. And I understand, I totally get it. A desire for a better place, to prosper economically. I think about it every day. I think about going down south. The economy's better. The numbers don't lie. There's a mass exodus out of Illinois right now. And I think about moving to the South every single day because of the economy. Okay. And I totally get that. But there's a process. Otherwise, the United States isn't going to be this awesome place. It's not going to be a place of economic opportunity. This place, the better place won't exist anymore if we have 500,000 illegal immigrants coming into the country. I want to talk about the cartels too. They're making $13 billion a year smuggling illegals into the border. Now, that's a massive pay jump from the 500 million under the Trump administration in 2018. Cartels are a big problem. They were a big problem under the Trump administration. Like I said, 500 million. But 13 billion, there's a big difference between that million and billion. Uh, that's bad. And I've talked to Romanian so-called refugees. He wasn't a refugee because he broke international law and he sought asylum in the United States when he should have sought asylum in Spain when he fled from Romania. He went to Spain, then got on a plane from Spain, went to the Mexico border, then paid a guy $3,000 a head. He had 9 grand. He dished out 9 grand to be driven, not even over the border, but to be driven close to the border. So these cartels, they're not really making a big they don't take a whole lot of risk. They just drive them close enough to the border for 3 grand a head, and then what happens is these illegal immigrants hop out of the van, and then they walk over, the border, where they jump or swim. So, do you really think the coyotes like Trump or Biden? I think the coyotes like Biden more because they're making out like bandits. $13 billion a year smuggling illegal immigrants into the US border. Fentanyl seizures at the border increased 164% from 2020 to 2022. That's up 50% from the last year's high in 2020 or in 2019. So that's up 164% was the jump from 2020 to 2022. And don't let progressives try to gaslight you and saying that immigrants commit less crime than native born citizens. When you account for illegal immigration, which is hard to do because they're here illegally, which is the key point thing. When you look at the numbers, they commit violent crimes at a much higher rate. Okay, that's just bottom line. It's hard to narrow down the statistics on that because they're here illegally and you don't know how to count that. Like, there's just so many coming in, but they do commit violent crimes at a much higher rate. And it's a much tougher pill to swallow, too. Think about that. When your child is shot in El Paso or your sister is raped by someone who, as a matter of law, has no business being here anyway. In other words, that's a preventable crime. Okay, that's a much harder pill to swallow. I'd imagine Emma Schaefer, who's that Springfield girl, her parents, I'm sure they're very upset because that guy should have been deported, Gabriel Calixto, a long time ago when he kidnapped the first girl and served prison time in an Illinois prison. Why was he serving time in an Illinois prison? If he's here on a DACA program and he commits a heinous crime like, oh, I don't know, kidnapping someone, shouldn't we deport his butt? And how can we not think that this is all by design? The Biden administration makes sure that there is nothing getting in the way of people coming in as freely as they please. So, what does Trump plan to do? So, let's get to Trump's plan. What does he plan to do? Well, for starters, he will terminate every border policy Biden has put in place. He said this: we'll carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in history. Will invoke the Alien Enemies Act and remove known or suspect gang members. He's also going to militarize the border, which would include moving thousands of troops from overseas, Ukraine, who are guarding other people's borders, Ukraine, and he's going to move them here. I will bring back the travel ban and expand it even further to keep radical Islamic terrorists out of the country. The best part of his plan is that he's going to deny entry to communists and Marxists to the United States. So we have people coming in who are known communists, who are known Marxists, who are known fascists, and we don't want them. We have enough of them in Congress, okay? We've got enough of them, believe me. We don't need any more communists or Marxists. So they there are many pressing issues this country currently faces, but I think that the border could be the most important. I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I got to tell you a little bit about Ken Paxton. He was on with Tucker Carlson, and he talks about how Joe Biden had his little lawyers come down and be a part of this impeachment of Ken Paxton. It didn't work. I love it because these liberals like Karl Rove just tried to annihilate the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, but it didn't work. I've got to tell you more about it here next on The Buzz. Tiffany, let's go. I want to move south too. Yeah. Hey, if you're watching, go ahead, smash the like button. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. And we're back. Yes. So Saturday is the first day of fall. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz, 6:54 a.m. And what's Joe Biden's favorite season? It's fall. Because he falls off the stairs of Air Force One, falls off his bike. That's his favorite season. It's fall. Now, we're going to be getting back to Joe Biden here in just a second. But I did want to tell you a little bit about the first day of fall. So, it's the beginning of what they call cuffing season, that period between fall and winter when people look for someone to spend the holidays with. Okay, so this is a cuffing season. Have you heard of this? So they want to spend their holidays and the cold days and cold nights of winter with somebody. So uh, there may be something to this because researchers have actively looked up the numbers during this time period, fall, winter, on dating apps, and they found that there's a jump in users around the fall and winter months. So, can you smell the love in the air? Can you smell the pumpkin spice? Today's also National Ice Cream Cone Day. What's your favorite ice cream place? I'm always looking for new ice cream places. We really like taking the youth group out to at the Tabernacle. I go to church there on Hovey Avenue, and I'm always looking for new places to take the youth group out to ice cream. I really like Top Hat in Lincoln, Illinois. I go there quite a bit. Top Hat is really good. I'm more of a hard serve type of person. I don't like soft serve because it's like you don't have enough time to eat it. As soon as it comes out of the machine, you got to start like licking that ice cream. Otherwise, it's going to drip all over your hand, and it's just not a great time. So I'm a hard serve type of person, and my favorite is actually freezer burnt ice cream. I know that sounds crazy, but I really like not like crazy freezer burnt, but like a little bit of these little ice cube chunks that you get in the ice cream, and then I just eat the and you get like a bite of freezer burnt, which is really good. I know I'm a weirdo. I've really gotten into those new Dole Whips. Dole Whips. I don't know what your favorite flavor of Dole Whip is, but let me know your favorite ice cream place. That's our text line 309-451-9299. We've got some things I got to get to. Specifically, I want to talk about Ken Paxton. He was on with Tucker Carlson for his first interview since the impeachment proceedings and everything. As Donald Trump told us, he has been, I guess, exonerated. Congratulations. This is what Donald said about Ken Paxton. He says, "Congratulations to the great people of Texas and the state Senate for rejecting political persecution and respecting the integrity of our elections. We should choose our elected officials by voting, not by weaponizing the government. That is for banana republics and third world countries. Now, Attorney General Paxton can get back to work. He's one of the best." So we're gonna play a little bit from that interview because it was damning for the Biden administration. They sent little acolytes from the Biden administration, these little lawyers, to be a part of these impeachment proceedings. And he goes into detail with that on Tucker. Plus, we've got to talk about the dress code because actually Dick Durbin and some other Democrats, Joe Manchin, they're not very happy with this dress code change. Chuck Schumer did it very under the rug, very quietly, and he did it, of course, for John Fetterman. But it's kind of causing a riff in the Democrat Party, and I'm for it. I think it's hilarious. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. Also, let's talk about Governor JB Pritzker. Now, there's been a lot of abortion laws that he's signed into place since the U.S. Supreme Court said, hey, we're going to give it back to the states. JB took that opportunity to not only provide more access for abortion, but celebrate abortion. I'm going to make my case here. He is the most extreme person, I think, on abortion. It's so funny because he's a man. Like, you would think that the most extreme person in the nation on abortion would be a woman, maybe Governor Whitmer, maybe even Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton. Maybe you'd think that she's the most extreme. No, no, no. the most extreme a person on abortion is actually a man. So I've got to dig through what he's done so far because it's so important and it doesn't even scratch the surface. Okay. There's so much more, and I'm only going to get to a few of them. But he was on this like panel with Hillary Clinton and Gretchen Whitmer, and he says something that just, uh, I just can't believe he said it out loud, and I just don't believe him. He says that he goes to these deep red MAGA country type places and women will come up to him. First of all, women coming up to JB Pritzker, I find that very hard to believe. He's just not that type of guy who attracts people. I don't see that when he's here campaigning. I don't think that he attracts uh, a whole lot of women, um, but they run up to him, I guess, and they whisper in his ear, which I also found kind of odd. Thank you so much for standing up for our pro-choice rights or whatever. I find that very hard to believe. I really do. And JB, he has done some crazy things like House Bill 4664, and it aims to protect people seeking to kill babies, um, assisted reproduction or gender reassignment procedures in Illinois. Um, it aims to protect people from other states. That's the thing. Um, so if you are from out of state, you come here for an abortion, you come here for assisted reproduction, gender reassignment procedures in the state of Illinois, you're going to be protected under the law. So your state can't come after you, which I don't even think is constitutional. You can go across the border and get some sort of abortion because I don't know Indiana. I think maybe Kentucky has like a 6 week heartbeat ban or 6 week heartbeat bill. Um, so there's that bill. There's other bills. I think that he created something. I gotta look this up. It's like an abortion van, essentially. Abortion mobile clinic in Illinois, and they take this abortion clinic. Yep, here it is. Yep. Planned Parenthood is planning to open an abortion clinic on wheels in Illinois to reduce travel times for patients in red states um, by bringing abortion care to them. Yes, it's pretty funny. Absolutely wild. Actually looking because the location in which they were trying to put this abortion ban or this abortion van on was actually really kind of funny. It was they were gonna park the van, and really what it was a place where there were child sacrifices, in this town, and it was in Illinois, and it was in ancient times where there were actual child sacrifices, and they were talking about parking the van in this area in Illinois, and it's kind of poetic in a way, because now they're going to be performing child sacrifices in the same place, that child sacrifices were performed in ancient history. Um, yeah, so that I mean, an abortion clinic on wheels, we've got that. We've also got the rolling back of the parental notification law, which was a 25 standing yeah, or 25-year standing law. He rolls that back. The state is no longer uh, a state that requires parental notification for a minor to terminate her pregnancy. So if she's 12 years old, goes to an abortion clinic, that person performing the abortion, with the forceps, breaking the legs, crushing the skull, kind of thing, um, he doesn't have to notify the parents that this 12-year-old is seeking an abortion. Also, the SB 1909, what that looks to do, it's $50,000 fine for pregnancy resource centers, and that's the thing about this. If you go to a pregnancy resource center, you know what you're in for, and that's your choice to go to a pregnancy resource center. Pregnancy resource centers, they typically don't advocate for abortion. And JB says that these women come up to him, whisper to him, and say, "Man, just thank you so much for protecting our choice, our right to choose." And that's the thing, though. JB is not about your right to choose because of this 1909. It's clear that he's not about your right to choose. So if you choose to go to a pregnancy resource center and receive services, that's not cool with Kwame Raoul, JB, and the Democrats of the state of Illinois, because they're going to fine these pregnancy resource centers $50,000 if they find something they deem as deceptive practices. So they've attacked pregnancy resource centers. So they're not about your right to choose. They're about killing babies. So JB Pritzker, he says that he's all for killing babies, essentially. He gets on the stage with, you won't believe it, it's Hillary Clinton, Gretchen Whitmer. I mean, I believe it. I think it's so odd that Governor JB Pritzker is probably the most extreme on abortion in the nation, and he's a dude. Uh, okay, so I think it's kind of odd that we have a man up there with two females, Hillary Clinton and Gretchen Whitmer, and he's talking about how he has addressed the issue of access to abortion and how he's expanded it and celebrated it here in the state of Illinois after last year's U.S. Supreme Court decision to put the issue back to the give the issue back to the states. JB, he has taken this opportunity to celebrate it, to promote it, and to advocate for abortions. There's a big difference between providing access to abortion and promoting it and celebrating it and attacking women and pregnancy resource centers who advocate for life. Um, so we're going to talk about his track record here because there's just been so much, and I think that this is a good time, being that he was with Hillary Clinton on stage talking about it. I'm going to run through what he's done in the state in regards to abortion and expanding it and celebrating it here coming up in just a little bit. But first, I do want to talk about Ken Paxton. He was on with Tucker Carlson, and he actually revealed that there were some Biden lawyers who were a part of this impeachment investigation in Texas. This is a big deal. So over the weekend, he sat down with Tucker Carlson for his first interview after the proceedings, and he's been exonerated, and he gets to go back to work. That's Ken Paxton. So I want to play this here for us. There is a clip in this interview that you need to hear, and you can see it live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I'm there. You can comment, be a part of the show, subscribe to the channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. Liberals like Karl Rove, they tried to annihilate Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, and it didn't work uh, because here he is on Tucker Carlson's show. Here we go.
Our legal operations. So, I have to go now figure out what's going on in my own office. And a lot of people have left. They created a lot of harm to the state of Texas by doing it this way.
Did you think the voters were in charge before?
I used to think like election. I'm like very suspicious now. If they can do this to me, I mean, they can do this to Lieutenant
So
Governor.
they take you out of office. Do they pay you?
No, well, they're supposed to. By law, that I am the Attorney General. It's in the statute that I'm getting paid. The comptroller, Glenn Hager, for some reason decided, you know what? I'm not going to pay you. I'm taking away. Go sue me. And he knows that if I sue him in Austin, I have a hard time winning any case in Austin.
So they take away your job. They take away your money. What do you do?
And they took away my ability ultimately to even speak.
What do you mean?
We had a gag order put in place on both parties somewhere, I think in June. So I could no longer even defend what was being leaked by the House team to reporters.
A gag order?
A gag order. So I could not respond to any.
So you've been convicted of nothing.
That's correct.
You've not been able to bring your side of the story to the investigators. I guess.
They refused. We tried to even send somebody their little, sham hearing that lasted less than 4 hours. And they said, no, we don't want to hear your side.
And then you can't speak in public about it?
That's correct. This is
But
the
don't
first
you have a
interview-
First Amendment right to say what you think?
That's my opinion. But the problem is I can't really challenge it because.
So there you have it. I've got more clips from that interview. But yeah, bottom line, he wasn't convicted of anything. And then he lost his job. Then they wouldn't pay him, although it says that you have to pay somebody. The comptroller just said, nah, we're not going to pay you. But the crazy thing about this interview that dropped on Tucker Carlson's Twitter, Tucker Carlson on Twitter, was that he disclosed that there were 2 of the 4 House investigating lawyers worked for the DOJ in Washington. That's not random, folks. We've got Ken Paxton explaining that in the House Investigating Committee, there's 5 members, okay? And 3 of which are Republicans, 2 of which were Democrats. And they hired, so the House Investigating Committee hired these lawyers that were from the Biden DOJ. And that wasn't by accident. They were sent there. Okay, so Carlson noted that Paxton filed 48 suits against the Biden administration. A lot of that was for the border, things that he was doing unconstitutionally. And Ken Paxton says, I think that was motivation to send these lawyers. They wanted to shut him down because they were causing a lot of trouble. His office was causing a lot of trouble for the Biden administration. So he says, even if we didn't, we slowed them down. If we didn't cause a lot of trouble, we definitely slowed them down, and we were winning. Like, I think our number was 77% of our cases. So they brought forward 48 suits against Joe Biden for things like the border crisis, voter fraud, things like that. And he was winning 77% of those cases, of the 48 cases. So we were a huge problem for the Biden administration, is what Ken Paxton was saying. And that's why they wanted to get rid of me. And that is sending his lawyers to investigate this was a way of doing that. So it was all political. Carlson questioned whether Paxton thought that the effort to remove him from office really came from the Biden administration. And Paxton said, yeah, I really do. And what's interesting is I've seen this here locally. Um, they used the town of Normal taxpayer money to go after citizens of the town of Normal who just wanted ballot access for certain positions and offices that were laid out in state statute. So state statute said, hey, you have to have a town clerk that's elected. You have to have a town administrator or something like that. And there were a few offices that in state statute, in Illinois state statute, said that you had to elect if you're an incorporated town, which Normal was at the time. How do I know that? Well, because people tried to run run a petition question to divvy up the town of Normal into different districts, like similar to what the city of Bloomington has. Okay, a ward system, a district system, and people were running those petitions out there. I was circulating petitions to try to get that question onto the ballot. Just the question onto the ballot: shall the town of Normal be divided up into 8 different districts or something like that? We wanted that question on the ballot. We wanted the people to decide whether we wanted a district system. And they knocked that question off of the ballot. They wouldn't allow that question onto the ballot because they were a so-called incorporated town and they couldn't be divvied up into a district system. Okay, and I'm kind of explaining this story because it's relevant here, and you see it at the local level, and I've seen this at the local level, and I know what happened to Ken Paxton because I saw it in real time here in the town of Normal. So anyway, they say, well, we're an incorporated town. Okay. Well, according to state statute, then if you're an incorporated town, you need these offices to be on the ballot. And currently they're appointed by the mayor. So that's a no-no. We're going to run people and we're going to get these people to collect signatures to get on the ballot and to be elected. Tried to do that. Shut down again. And they had all of the resources in the world because they had an endless wallet, because they just went back to the taxpayers and they funded Michael Madigan attorneys. People have worked for Michael Madigan out of Chicago. They hired these attorneys, called in backup, and they said, "Hey, they're really causing an issue for us here. We're a thorn in they're a thorn in our side, and we are calling in the enforcement or reinforcements. So let's get Michael Madigan's attorneys down here and shut this stuff down right away." And that's what happened in the town of Normal. So I've seen it happen at the local level where they use taxpayer money to bring in these big guys. So they brought in these big attorneys for the Biden DOJ because Ken Paxton was a thorn in the side, and he was winning these cases. He was a thorn in the side of the Biden administration, and he was getting sick of it. And he said, "You know what? We're going to start this impeachment investigation." I don't even really know what Ken Paxton did. It's a very confusing thing. I think it has to deal with campaign donations or something like that, and the misuse of campaign donations. Um, but he was exonerated. He was not convicted, and he was acquitted of all of these charges or all of these accusations. He wasn't even charged with anything. That's the thing. He wasn't charged, wasn't convicted, but he lost his job. He lost his money, and they really tried to go after him. So Donald Trump here saying, "Congratulations to the great people of Texas and the state Senate for rejecting political persecution and respecting the integrity of our elections. We should choose our elected officials by voting, not by weaponizing the government." That's banana republic type stuff in third world countries. Now, Attorney General Ken Paxton can get back to work. He's one of the best. So Ken Paxton was doing all kinds of great things. He was going after Joe Biden for these unconstitutional executive orders. And he was also going after people for voting fraud. He was prosecuting voter fraud in all of these different counties because these George Soros backed DAs, like in Austin or these really liberal counties in the state of Texas, weren't going after voter fraud. They weren't prosecuting those crimes. So the attorney general said, "Okay, where the DAs are lacking, I'm going to step up as the attorney general and prosecute these people." And they didn't like that either. They didn't like that they were prosecuting people who were committing voter fraud, and that is why Joe Biden sent his lawyer acolytes, and similar in that the same fashion the town of Normal did when the citizens were fighting for ballot access and for more representation. They sent down Michael Madigan attorneys to just squash the people and to squash people for and to really politically persecute people. I've got to take a quick break, but when we come back, Governor JB Pritzker joining a Clinton Foundation panel. So I guess that he's hanging out with Hillary Clinton and Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, and he's talking about how Illinois is the best because we've seen an increase. I don't know why you would tout this, of out of state patients coming here to kill their babies. Why would you gloat about that, JB? It's very weird. We're going to talk about that. Plus, there's this dress code that's going on. There's bipartisan pushback from the Senate Democrat whip, Dick Durbin from Illinois here, and he says that the Senate should have standards. So Chuck Schumer tried to quietly change the dress code for John Fetterman because John Fetterman likes to dress like he's a mechanic, or he likes to dress in sweatpants. And yeah, actually, some Democrats aren't for that. I'll be back. Hey, folks, if you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. we start to see this happen all of the time at the local level, state level, federal level. This was at a much larger scale with Ken Paxton because Joe Biden actually sent his lawyers to be a part of these like impeachment proceedings against Ken Paxton. I think it had something to do with campaign donations not being used correctly. Like I think there was something and obviously Ken Paxton was acquitted of all of this, and none of it was true, and they couldn't prove any of that. I think there was something about a countertop in his kitchen that he used campaign donations to fix or something like that. So something crazy, and it was very uh, confusing what they were even going after him for. So he was kind of really confused about what they were actually going after him for. So he couldn't even really properly defend himself. And what's interesting is that the Republicans in the state of Texas and the Democrats, this uniparty, went after Ken Paxton. And there was a reason why they did that. It was because Ken Paxton was being a thorn in the side of the Biden administration. So they sent down Biden DOJ lawyers to be a part of the impeachment proceedings. And the House committee hired these lawyers. Okay, so these lawyers were not, you know, they didn't come down on their own fruition or anything like that. They were hired using taxpayer money in the state of Texas. The state of Texas, who voted Ken Paxton by a lot. I think he got 68% of the vote. That's a lot. And they voted for Ken Paxton to be their attorney general. But the House committee they impeached him in the House, okay, to try to get rid of the attorney general. And this House committee, who was doing the investigation on Ken Paxton for using campaign or misusing campaign donations or something like that, um, they hired these attorneys with taxpayer money. So it's kind of similar in the same sense here in the town of Normal. We've got this case where people are out there petitioning, trying to get a question onto the ballot. Shall the town of Normal be divvied up into 8 different districts? And people were petitioning just to get the question on the ballot. This is how you know how shady this stuff all is, because it was just the question. Okay, it wasn't even definitively, yes, we're going to split the town of Normal up into 8 different districts and we're going to be moving into a ward system, which would be better, okay? Because then you have a direct point person. It's much like the city of Bloomington. If you have an issue in your neighborhood, you can go to your district member and you don't have to speak to an at-large council. Okay. Anyway, people just wanted the question on the ballot. Well, they were shut down by court, and the court found that the town of Normal is a so-called incorporated town. Okay. So they got all their petitions that they needed. They circulated petitions to get that question on the ballot. If you get enough signatures to get a ballot initiative on the ballot, then it'll be on the ballot. However, in this case, the town of Normal said, "Nope, you can't do that," and the court said that, well, we're an incorporated town, the town of Normal, and there is no such thing as districts. You can't divvy up an incorporated town. So then you go to the state statute and you look at, okay, what's the definition of an incorporated town anyway? Then you start to see, oh, well, an incorporated town has to have these 3 different positions, which are currently appointed by the mayor, but it says elected in the state statute. And then people were like, okay, well, if we're not getting our districts then and we're an incorporated town, well, then of course we should be following the state statute that lays out, hey, this is the kind of representation you need in an incorporated town. We want to run more people and have and expand our representation in the town of Normal. So then what happened? They didn't like that either. They get their Michael Madigan attorney to come all the way down from Chicago. Using taxpayer money, they hired this individual, um, this Michael Madigan attorney, to go after the citizens who wanted to have more representation and ballot access, and got the signatures to get on the ballot for those positions. They argued that those positions didn't exist, blah blah blah, and the opposing side, the citizens, they argued, well, the state statute says you have to have these positions. Eventually got up to court. A judge said, because of home rule, Normal can do this. So essentially, Normal can operate outside of the state statute because of home rule, which is bizarro. Um, and then even further, okay, they broke the law clearly, and the judge distorted the law and didn't read the law correctly and made a crappy decision. I'm just going to say it. I think it was Judge Fellheimer made a crappy decision and said on the basis of a home rule they can do this kind of stuff. So if on the basis of home rule you can do this kind of stuff, why go change the law? So then they get a friendly legislator, Sharon Chung, to go up into Springfield and to write in law that Normal should be exempt from this state statute where incorporated towns have to have these few positions that are elected, not appointed. So she changed the law. They broke a law and then they changed the law. That's what happened. 309-451-9299. You can always text in and comment. Good morning. Hey, it's a Friday. It's a Friday. And fall, the first day of fall is this Saturday. Do you smell the pumpkin spice in the air? I've got a happy news story for you. I like to drag these out on Fridays. It's good for you. It's good for you to just step back from the crazy news. We are going to be hitting a topic really, really hard, doing some heavy lifting because Governor J.B. Pritzker was out there celebrating abortion with Hillary Clinton and Gretchen Whitmer at this Clinton Foundation panel thing. And he talks about how he, quote unquote, expanded the access to abortion here in the state of Illinois. No, JB, you did way more than that, pal. You celebrated it, you promoted it. I mean, in fact, we've got abortion mobile clinics on wheels. We've got abortions on wheels, and they're parking that van along the border of Illinois, and they're getting women to come over the state and to kill their babies. And he says that he's all just about choice. He's all about choice, okay? But he's not about choice because if your choice is to go to a pregnancy resource center, like Living Alternatives here in Bloomington, and then they have a location in Lincoln as well. If your choice is to go to a pregnancy resource center and keep your child and go to counseling services and work with the pregnancy resource center to have that child, then no, he doesn't like that. So he's going after your right to choose life, whether that be to adoption or whatever. He's going after your choice because that is what the pregnancy resource center does. They give you a different option other than abortion a lot of times. And he's gone after them via his attorney general, Kwame Raoul, who is like his little sidekick, his little lapdog, and does whatever he says. And Kwame Raoul is going to be issuing fines of $50,000 if he finds some so-called deceptive practice that the pregnancy resource centers are doing. So he's actively going after your right to choose life. Okay, there's a difference between expanding access to abortion and then promoting abortion. So we're going to be chatting about that. I'm going to play the clip from he and Hillary talking about abortion. But first, I want to get into this really cool, it's good news story. So Aspen Brown and her father, Luther, visited the Crater of Diamonds State Park in Arkansas earlier this month to celebrate Aspen's 7th birthday. So Aspen and Luther, they're going to this awesome state park. It's called Crater of Diamonds. And wouldn't you know it, she found a rare 2.95 carat golden brown diamond. Whoa, this little girl. Aspen was resting near some rocks and then she spotted this shiny stone, which was about the size of like a green pea. And she took the stone to the park staff and they confirmed that yes, this is a diamond and one of the largest found this year. And Aspen named the diamond after herself. After she found it, she named it after herself, and she was very happy with her discovery. The assistant park superintendent his name is Wayman Cox, described it as one of the most beautiful diamonds that he's seen in recent years. The park allows visitors to keep any diamonds they find, which is an extra bonus for Aspen and her family because the diamond of that size can cost anywhere from $12,000 to $50,000 after it's polished and set. So she came into a lot of money at 7 years old when she found that 2.95 carat golden brown diamond at this state park, which is a really cool thing that the park allows the visitors to keep any kind of diamonds that they find. I might have to take a visit up to this Crater of Diamonds State Park in Arkansas and maybe come into some money. Aspen Brown and her father Luther. I mean, that's a pretty cool birthday. 309-451-9299. We're going to be back on the other side talking about not only Governor J.B. Pritzker and the abortion issue, but I also have Karen Jean-Pierre when she was asked to simply call the border crisis a border crisis. She flipped out on Peter Doocy. You got to hear how she has this meltdown. It's kind of funny. On the other side. Oh, JB. JB joined Hillary Clinton and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer on a stage during this panel discussion for the Clinton Foundation this week. And, he's sitting up there and he's talking about how, he's expanded access to difference between celebrating it and denying women the right to choose life. He says that he's all about choice. He's totally cool with choice and he's this pro-choice guy. I think it's kind of funny, comical even that we've got Governor JB Pritzker. He's like the number one person in the nation, I think the most extreme in the nation on abortion. And look at him. He's a guy. You would think that Hillary would be more extreme, Gretchen Whitmer would be no more extreme. No, I think that Governor JB Pritzker is the most extreme when it comes to abortion. And don't believe me, just believe the numbers. Okay. Illinois has seen an increase in out of state patients coming here to kill babies. And Pritzker said that he believes that this issue is very important in the next election. It's really not. The Democrats, they like to do this thing where they make green energy, climate change, that's an important issue. Abortion is an important issue. They try to convince you that this is a real issue. It's not. Pritzker likes this issue because he gets all of the suburban wine moms to root for him for this issue because it's emotive and it's capitalizing on people's emotions and manipulating people's emotions, and that's how he gets elected. So it is an important issue for him to get elected because he uses the manipulation of women's emotions to get elected. So here it is. I'm going to share this with you on the live stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. Share this out with your normie friends. It's very important that we get this news out there today. Now, Pritzker, here he is advocating for so-called reproductive rights. I love when they call it reproductive rights. Um, let's just call it what it is. It's killing babies. Here we go. Let's take a listen to it.
For reproductive rights, he joined other Democratic leaders in a panel. Natalie.
The governor was in New York City on stage with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. The panel discussion on reproductive rights was part of the Clinton Global Initiative's 2023 meeting. Governor Pritzker noted that all of Illinois' neighboring states have restrictions on abortion. Pritzker believes Illinois needs to do more to improve women's health care, including reducing maternal mortality rates, especially within minority communities. Now, Pritzker claims that he's being patted on the back by Republican women for his pro-choice values.
People in deep red Trump territory, and it was mostly women who would walk up to me and they would lean in and whisper. People would shout it in Chicago, and they'd lean in and whisper and say, "Thank you so much for preserving our right to choose."
What?
The Illinois Department of Public.
Okay, one, I highly doubt that. Two, our right to choose. JB Pritzker is not about the right to choose. He wants you to go get an abortion. This is a very devastating thing a woman would have to go through, an abortion, right? But he is celebrating it, he's promoting it, and the reason why is because he thinks that it keeps getting him elected, or he doesn't want to lose that white mom suburban voter whom he manipulates her emotions and gets him or gets them to vote for him every single time. Okay, and he's a weirdo, and I think that he likes manipulating women's emotions and getting them to vote for him uh, on this issue. I find it very hard to believe that a woman would go up to JB Pritzker and whisper in his ear. Specifically, I think it's very odd that somebody chooses this language. Thank you so much for giving us the right to choose. It's not really a choice, then, is it? Because if it was your right to choose, then you wouldn't be thanking JB Pritzker for your right to choose. And that's a very clear indication that JB Pritzker believes that he is the arbiter of rights and that our rights don't come from God. They are not endowed by a creator. He thinks that he is the arbiter of rights. Anyway, so he talks about this right to choose. But if you choose a pregnancy resource center and want to keep your child, then he's not about that because of SB 1909. This is a bill where he has equipped his little minion, Attorney General Kwame Raoul, to go after these pregnancy resource centers right here in Bloomington or Lincoln, uh, living alternatives, and hit them with fines, $50,000 fines if they think that they are doing so-called deceptive practices or something like that. So he's really not about your right to choose. He's really about killing babies. He likes abortion. He enjoys manipulating women's emotions to get them to vote Democrat over this issue of abortion. Okay, so he also approved House Bill 4664, and that protects people who are killing babies, uh, people who are looking for gender reassignment procedures and surgeries here in the state of Illinois who come from a different state. So, Indiana, Kentucky, Iowa, so you get protection under the law. So your state can't come after you if you break the law and travel and go get an abortion in the state of Illinois. I don't even know if that's all constitutional or not, but he approved it, 4664. So it protects you under the law. So your state, if you live in Kentucky, cannot come after you for going to go get an abortion in the state of Illinois. Um, there's also this House Bill 3226 signed into law, and it has the ability to access automatic license plates reader data in Illinois to punish someone from out of state seeking an abortion in Illinois. Um, so that that is if you that they tried to get it to where hey, those states that have that law and they can punish you if you go out of state and seek that abortion in Illinois, uh and then they can come after you and hit you with it's not like they're going to throw you in jail or anything like that. Okay, it's like, hey, we're going to issue a fine because you broke the law here in you're an Iowa resident and you broke the law. I'd have to look into that that law, the HB 3226, and what the actual statutory like punishment is. But Illinois, what they did, they signed a law that directly goes against other laws in other states. So I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily constitutional. Among other policies, Illinois is no longer a state of parental notification. So parental notification is where a 12-year-old, if she gets pregnant and she goes to an abortion clinic, that individual taking the forceps, crushing the skull of the baby, crushing the limbs of the baby, and pulling them out limb by limb, that individual has to notify a parent. That used to be the case. It was a 25-year standing law, the Parental Notification Act. But now in the state of Illinois, a 12-year-old can go have her baby crushed limb by limb and pulled out of her, and you don't have parents don't have a right to know that. So Illinois continues to have the most least restrictive abortion laws in the nation. 14 straight states have voted for restrictions on abortion. I always thought that it was supposed to be safe, legal, and rare, right? So a lot of these states, it's not illegal in a lot of these states. A lot of it is just 6-week heartbeat pills. So if there's a heartbeat, you can't have an abortion. A lot of those states have implemented things like that. But there's Governor J.B. Pritzker celebrating abortion. And that's the difference, is that he is celebrating abortion. He's not pro-choice. He's pro-abortion. He's pro-baby killing. And that's clear by a lot of his extremist policies. Do want to shift gears. Let's talk about Senator John Fetterman. He dressed like a mechanic yesterday for the Senate hearing, and he goes on this strange, like 3-minute rant about how he can no longer process language in the same way after his stroke. tell me if you can understand what he's saying here. Here's a lesson in Fettermese. I'm trying to decipher what he says here.
Very personal issue with me. And I'm going to show this, and then I'm going to describe this to others. This is my iPhone, and this is a transcription service that allows me to fully participate in this meeting and conversations with my children and interacting with my staff. I had a stroke about 18 months ago, and I have lost my ability to fully process language. And I like to think I was an empathetic person, truly. But until that happened, I've raised to a whole different kind of level as well. And it's profound to know, though, that I never really considered that without this kind of technology, I couldn't watch television. And I can't imagine if I didn't have this kind of a bridge to allow me to communicate with other people effectively. And, because I live in a political environment, I was ridiculed and made fun of because I wasn't able to process things sometimes or say things. So I'm so sorry that I'm sure many of you had to go through this kind of thing. I was lucky that I was lucky enough to go through my life, the vast majority of that, without this kind of disability that I have. But again, I can't imagine and how the challenges, and I admire everyone that has to kind of live with these kind of struggles and prevail over them. And the questions that I have is really more of an open-ended kind of question to everyone on the panel. How can we become more empathetic, more responsive, and more effective senators to provide the kind of support and services that anyone in these communities deserve to be a citizen here in our nation?
What? I don't even know what he's talking about. He wants more services but what he's talking about is what he gets. So, like, what more do you want, John Fetterman? You are provided a service as a senator here with this disability where you can no longer process language. And he goes on for another minute or so. I just had to turn that stuff off. But he even shows, hey, look at this transcription I have on my iPhone in order to participate in this meeting. So I don't know what really his ask is. There are services out there that help you with your disability, John. And it's just so sad to see him up there. He's breaking down. He's almost about ready to cry. This this is actually the senator. He's about ready to cry about this. Where's his wife? I don't know. I do also have to tell you a little bit about that dress code. So there is some strife within the Democrat Party, believe it or not, about this dress code thing. So Chuck Schumer quietly implemented this dress code change, and there is some full blown bipartisan problems for the Democrat Senator Majority Leader. That's Dick Durbin. So John Fetterman, whom the rule was implemented for. He's wearing what appears in this clip that I just played for you, some sort of rumpled up short sleeve button down, and he had some shorts. Looks like he just rolled out of bed kind of display. And, Dick Durbin and Joe Manchin, they think that this is not good, that this dress code is not cool, and that they want to preserve or hold the decorum of the Senate. That's what they're saying. So the same day, he took to the Twitter machine to call House Republicans jagoffs. This is John Fetterman, over their alleged attempts to shut the government down, saying if they could come to an agreement on a spending deal and also support Ukraine funding, then he'd wear a suit and tie again. Okay, so that's what he was doing on Twitter. He goes on Twitter, calls the Republicans jagoffs over their alleged attempts to shut down the government, saying that if they could come to an agreement on a spending deal to support more funding to Ukraine, that he'd wear a suit and tie again. So that's what he said. He goes, I'll wear a suit and tie once the Republicans decide to give Ukraine more money. The same Ukraine that has a military spokesperson out there advocating for the murder of American journalists who are uh, critical of the war. Yes, they put American journalists on a kill list. This individual, who's a trans military spokesman for the Ukraine, he's been suspended now because the defense forces said that was against international humanitarian law for him to put Jack Posobiec, an American journalist, and a couple of others on this kill list. So yeah, that Ukraine, he wants us to spend more money on that Ukraine. And he said once we spend more money, the House Republicans spend more money on Ukraine, then he'll wear a suit and tie again. That was the same day. So it's not widely reported that a lot of Democrats have an issue with this new dress code change that Chuck Schumer quietly implemented for John Fetterman. Joe Manchin's reaction to Schumer's change on Tuesday, he told Politico that he had talked to Fetterman personally and would do whatever he could to hold the decorum of the Senate. Manchin is circulating a proposal to get the dress code back to what it was, and he apparently has the approval of the Senate's second in command, Majority Whip Dick Durbin of Illinois. So Dick Durbin, he said the senator in question from Pennsylvania is a personal friend. I think that we need to have standards when it comes to what we're wearing on the floor of the Senate. And we're in the process of discussing that right now as to what those standards will be. So I think that Dick Durbin is actually not for John Fetterman's dress attire. So some very online leftists naturally aren't too happy with Manchin, Joe Manchin, and they're accusing him of having a priorities problem, which is somewhat amusing considering their priorities revolve around enshrining into law what they call a so-called right to terminate the lives of the unborn children and punishing Supreme Court justices for wrongthink. That's their priorities. They want to make sure that we enshrine into law the so-called right to terminate the lives of the unborn. That's where their priorities are. But they're accusing John Manchin of having bad priorities or not having priorities and having a priorities problem because he's concerned about the decorum in the Senate. Like I said, I don't think that this is a huge issue. However, I think it's kind of funny that Democrats are kind of going at it with each other over it. It's going to be an interesting debate. My hope is that Senator John Kennedy will step up to the mic wearing maybe like a white flashy suit of some kind. And because come on, John Kennedy can totally pull off a white flashy suit and just go up to the mic and just rip into all of them. I'm going to be back. This is the Morning Buzz. Happy Friday to y'all. 309-451-9299. You can text me on the text line, or you can see me live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Today is a great day to look at the planets and the stars because today is National Astronomy Day, also National Ice Cream Cone Day, and Saturday is the first day of fall. Can you smell the pumpkin spice in the air? We're going to be chatting a lot about the border. Kieran Jean Pierre, she was asked simply to call the crisis a crisis, the crisis at the border a crisis. And she totally flipped out when Peter Doocy was like, okay, lady, what would you call it when 10,000 illegal immigrants come through the southern border each day? And she just lashed out at him. And I've got to play some audio there for you. Plus, I want to talk about the referendum, the Unit 5 tax referendum that you probably voted for. Um, they said that if the referendum were to pass, and it did, it would mean that there would be better student to teacher ratios, but not for Cedar Ridge, folks. No, 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 no. Corey and Lucas Miles, their parents, and they're very upset that they got a document from the school talking about class sizes. And I'll tell you what that document said next. Well, and here's what I think that Dick Durbin doesn't like. So Dick Durbin, he is against the dress code that has been implemented quietly. Uh, and here's what I think Dick Durbin is afraid of. He's afraid that the Republicans are going to be exercising the new dress code, and they're going to come in their jeans and their flannels, and that is going to greatly disturb Dick Durbin because that's kind of how these Democrats are. They're very elitist. That's why they make government so complicated because they don't want you to be a part of the club. And that's what Dick Durbin is all about. He wants to be an elitist and he wants to feel like this rich guy. And, I don't think that the dress code is all that important. I think that this is more so, a distraction from what's actually happening. Um, so Dick Durbin probably is like uber against this because he wants to continue being an elitist and feeling important. Now, one thing that I saw that was kind of interesting, people actually used to dress up for baseball games. And I really like dressing up. I don't do it a whole lot just because there's no reason to ever. But I also like, just a t-shirt and sneakers, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that the average person like me, we don't dress up because we don't have time. And our jobs don't really require us to dress up. I'm behind a microphone and camera, but I don't really have to dress up for my job or anything like that. And, blue collar workers, they, wear their construction stuff. And I think that a lot of people like Dick Durbin don't like that. They want to have that step above everybody else. John Fetterman, the reason why he does it, he thinks that he is above everybody else in a way that he doesn't have to follow the dress code. And he just personally likes wearing sweatbands. But I think it's kind of interesting that they both have or like there's some strife within the Democrat Party. At the end of the day, I think John Kennedy in a white suit going up there and talking about how there's pornography on the shelves in the children's libraries. That would be pretty funny to watch him come up in a white suit. I'll be right back. This is the Morning Buzz. there's an invasion at the southern border, and Trump has laid out a plan to crush Joe Biden's border crisis. And I'm so excited to talk about Trump's plan here coming up in just a little bit. Uh, Plus, I do need to tell you about this referendum and how it passed and how Unit 5 kind of lied about how, hey, if this referendum passes, we're going to have better student to teacher ratios. Apparently, that was for everybody else except Cedar Ridge. So, Cedar Ridge Elementary, they've got an issue with class sizes. And there was a little piece of paper, a document that was sent home with a 6-year-old. And somehow, I guess the district thought that this vital piece of communication was going to get to their parents. It did wind up getting to the parents of Corey and Lucas Miles and their parents in the district and at Cedar Ridge Elementary Schools where their student goes. And they received a document that was stuffed into his backpack. No email, nothing like that. It was just a document stuffed into the kid's backpack. And it stated that the district has monitored class sizes during registration at the beginning of the school year, and it's come to their attention now that the first grade numbers at Cedar Ridge have recently increased beyond expectations, and now they're asking parents to go volunteer to send their kid to Sugar Creek Elementary or Fairview Elementary. So they're trying to reduce the class sizes here, the first grade class sizes at Cedar, but they're having a difficult time doing that because of building constraints and difficulty filling teacher positions. So, what? I thought that the tax referendum was supposed to fix this. In fact, I've got the letter here that Lucas, the father, sent to the school board, and he talks about this in his letter. And I think what he says here is great. He says, it did it not get directly sold to the community as a way to lower class sizes? This was brought up several times in numerous presentations on the referendum that we attended. And he said, at no point during the referendum discussions was it ever mentioned to us that in order to have our child enjoy the benefit of a regular sized classroom, so we're not even talking small classrooms, we're talking about a regular sized classroom. In order for our child to enjoy a regular sized classroom, that we would have to be required to provide our own transportation to get them to another school across town. So he sends this letter to the district after receiving this document that was in the backpack of this first grader. And I've got the district's response here. Uh, well, the district, they apparently were aware of this. They said that Cedar Ridge was, quote, on the bubble regarding the number of first grade classes and that they felt that it would be okay. The district didn't think that it was going to be a problem. Unfortunately, more students were enrolled as the school year approached, and there was way more than they had originally projected. So, of course, Kristen Weichel is out there, and she says, "Well, you know, the problem is parents, right? They don't enroll their child early enough, and they enroll their child right around the time that school starts." I love what he says here, Lucas Miles, in his letter to the school board. He says, why does Unit 5 fail to properly plan on how many students will attend their school? If they, if it's true that you are blaming the parents for not registering on time, what actions did you take last school year and over the summer to get the word out? Did you take some actions to try to get the word out? Hey, parents, Cedar Ridge Elementary, they're on the bubble right now, and we're not too sure uh, if our projections are right. But what we would really appreciate is if you can uh, register your kids earlier. Did they take steps to try to get the word out to register earlier so that way they could have that number? He goes on in the letter, Lucas Miles, and he says, our family registered on time. And yet we're the ones being forced to accept an absolutely terrible choice. It's either a huge class size in a Title I school or drive our kid clear across town. This is what Lucas says in the letter. Um, so, yeah, if I'm reading this correctly, the district and Kristen Weichel, what they said is, well, parents are parents and people being people, they didn't register their kids on time. And now or this is just what we have to deal with. No, because on your website here, it says, quote, and I'm quoting, if the referendum passes, that means better student to teacher ratio for academic success. So, what was the point of the referendum if it was not to get the class sizes smaller? Really, what was it? Because Lucas even pointed out, he goes, it passed and we all supported us. Supported the referendum. We do have to switch gears here. I want to talk a little bit about Kieran Jean-Pierre. She's the black lesbian White House press secretary. I have to say that she's black and lesbian because she really, really cares about that. She mentions it way too often, and it's like almost something that I have to include in her title. But authorities at the southern border are facing astronomical numbers of illegal crossings. I told you on Sunday, this past Sunday, it was 500 illegal immigrants on a Sunday passing over that southern border. And we're looking at about 500,000 over Biden's term. So 500,000 illegal immigrants coming into the country. And look, people, they are walking through rivers, they are walking over bridges in places like Eagle Pass, Texas. These are little border towns. There's no end to the crisis in sight either. The Customs and Border Patrol and state level enforcement are just completely overwhelmed. So this is a crisis. I just told you about the numbers. I told you about the caravans of made up of thousands of people walking through these rivers, walking through these bridge or walking over these bridges in places like Eagle Pass, Texas. Now, unfortunately, the administration refuses to even level with the American people. Instead, they send out this Kieran Jean-Pierre woman, and when she's pressed on the matter, she responds in a very dishonest and angry way. Pay attention to her response here. Let's take a listen. And if you're watching on the live stream, you can actually see the caravans that I'm talking about, the caravans of people. And it's kind of
to
interesting
deal with
to
this
watch
in
this
a
because you can
humane
actually
or
see in
we
the
have
video that these are not women, these are not children, these are not people fleeing religious persecution in any kind of way. These are people looking for uh, economic opportunities. And the thing of it is, if all of these people just completely ignore the process of getting into the United States legally, then the United States economically will not be as great as it is. So it won't be a better place economically. So let's take a listen. Here
we
we go.
have worked very hard. The president have worked very, very hard to implement a strategy when it comes to the border that is humane, safe, and has orderly enforcement. We've tried to make sure that we continue to deal with this in a humane, orderly way. We're going to continue to implement a strategy that is humane, that is safe, and that is orderly as it relates to enforcement. And so the president's going to continue to be committed, make sure we do this in a humane way, make sure that we do this in a safe and orderly fashion. We have worked
Safe and orderly fashion. And then meanwhile, you're watching. There's a cut here. Town Hall did the cut where you can watch the caravan of people just swim across the river. So I've talked to some Romanian refugees. David Paul and I actually did, and he informed us that he had to pay $3,000 a head. That's $9,000 because he, his wife, and his little girl were coming over the border, and he paid this man with huge tattoos on his arms. And he was a big guy, and he was in Spain. He was from Romania, went to Spain, took a flight out of Spain to Mexico. Then once he got into Mexico, I'd imagine some sort of cartel member because they're making $13 billion since Joe Biden has been in office. In 2018, I think the cartels were making a year about 500 million. So that's a big jump. Who do you think the cartels love more? Is it Joe Biden or is it Donald Trump? I would imagine they love Joe Biden because they're making $13 billion. Clearly, because they're paying, they're having people pay him $3,000 a head to bring them not even across the border. So there's very, very little risk involved when it comes to being a cartel member or somebody who traffics humans up to the border. So they don't even go across the border. So you have to pay $3,000 as, let's say, a Romanian refugee, or not a refugee, a so-called refugee, and a Romanian illegal immigrant. You have to pay $3,000 just to get close to the border. And then once you're close to the border, you can swim or walk or run or crawl over that border. So they won't even take you across it, which is kind of interesting. There's like very little risk of running into the customs border patrol. They put all the risk on you, but yet you have to pay $3,000 to get you from Mexico all the way to the U.S. border. That was Kieran Jean-Pierre. And to call what's happening at the southern border humane, safe, and orderly is objectively insane. And I feel pretty comfortable making that statement. People are being trafficked by drug cartels over, like I described. I met somebody. Okay, so this isn't fake news. This is real, and it's happening here in Bloomington Normal. And they're sitting out on the street corners begging for money because once they're here, they spent all of their money to give it to the cartels. Once they're here, there's no money left for them because they've spent it all trying to get here. And then they find out that, hey, I'm begging on the street corner here, and the Americans don't have money. Why don't the Americans have cash on them? They've all got credit cards, and they're all severely in debt. And I can't even buy a house here. It's $300,000. Yeah, it's not necessarily this great economic opportunity that was pitched to you, was it? Anyway, so women, children, they're being raped and abused. In the case of this Romanian refugee that I talked to, that was here in Bloomington, he had a small child, like a baby, with him. And all I kept thinking in my head when he was telling me about how he had to pay $3,000 to this man with tattoos, I would imagine probably has affiliation with the drug cartels down there. All I kept thinking was, what if that little girl were to get into the hands of this cartel member and not be driven close to the border, and instead this cartel member, being as large as he is, having all of these weapons, what if this cartel member looked at the Romanian dad and said, we're taking her. uh, and yeah, that kind of stuff happens all of the time. People are dying while trying to make this journey. And when the family finally reaches the United States, they're living on the street corners. There's nothing humane about this, Kieran Jean-Pierre. You're lying. And the administration's refusal to secure that border has created incentives that are leading to horrific outcomes. Horrific. Frankly, the White House continues to lie on this topic, and it's just immoral. Lidenomics, Joe Liden, okay, they are the kind of lies that you'd expect from sociopaths who show no actual care towards anyone that they actually harm. Uh, Worse, when others try to step up and do the job of the federal government who won't do their job, the administration attacks them. So, for example, I've got this clip here. We saw it with Ken Paxton. He was trying to go after the Biden administration because he kept passing these executive orders that were unconstitutional as it pertained to the border and opening up that border. It's all unconstitutional. And Ken Paxton, uh, he was uh, gone after. People have tried to step up to do the job of the federal government. Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton, and the administration attacks them. And Kieran Jean-Pierre continues to do that. Let's take a listen to what she has to say about Greg Abbott. Again, I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Kat Peterson 929. So Kieran Jean-Pierre says that states using tools such as razor wires are to stop the flow of illegal immigration. That's a political stunt. That's what she says here. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Cutting some of the razor wire that Texas had installed. Governor Abbott has vowed to reinstall it. They have his border czar has pictures of people taking fresh razor wire out to the border to reinstall it. Is there now a federal policy of removing the barriers that Texas is installing?
So here's what I'll say. I would have to look into that. I did see those reports yesterday, but as it relates to Governor Abbott, we know what he has done these past couple of years while this president has been in office. He's turned this, when it comes to the border, he's turned this into a political stunt. And that's what he's done over and over again. That's what I can speak to. I did see those reports. I would have to go back and get a sense from the team and give you an answer on that.
So we've got the federal government going out there. Greg Abbott, he's trying to address this border crisis by putting up razor wire. And now we've got the federal government out there and they're cutting that razor wire. And she's calling that a political stunt. How old are these people, really? Like a political stunt? Do you know how I know it's not a political stunt? Because the Custom Border Patrol agents are being sent out to cut through the razor wire in order to allow streams of illegal immigrants through. Clearly, it's effective, uh, judging by the numbers. I told you 500,000 under Joe Biden. The Biden administration is choosing to accelerate the border crisis. That is the political stunt, not what Greg Abbott is doing. He's trying to stop it by putting up razor wire. And these state level authorities are um, just trying to stop the flow of illegal immigration. These Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton, and how are they treated by the Biden administration? They are told that they're being political, or they actually have lawyers from the Biden DOJ sent down to participate in impeachment proceedings, much like what Ken Paxton went through. I'll be back. We've got more. I've got to get to. There was an angry exchange between Peter Ducey and Kieran Jean Pierre, and Kieran Jean Pierre, she was simply asked to call the crisis a crisis because that's what it is. And she flipped out on Peter Ducey. So we're going to play that clip here coming up in just a little bit. Plus, want to get to um, Ken Paxton actually revealing to Tucker Carlson on this interview that there were Biden administration lawyers that were part of this impeachment investigation in Texas. So there were some lawyers that were paid for via taxpayer dollars. We'll get to that here next on the Morning Buzz. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We are going to be talking a bit more about that story with the Cedar Ridge Elementary and the class sizes. Class sizes are great if they're small. I'm totally for the smallest of smallest class sizes, that being in your home, right? Maybe 2 or 3. If you've got 2 or 3 kids, teach them, and 2 or 3 kids in a classroom is great. I actually know of somebody, his name is William Whitney, and he has 12 children, which is a pretty small class size in comparison, but it's kind of big. He has 12 children, and they homeschool them all in Pontiac, Illinois. So it's doable, folks. Um, it really is. He's got 12 kids, and he's homeschooling them, each and every one of them. And I got to see their little desks, and they've got little Bibles on their desks, and it's wonderful. It was a wonderful homestead. It was really quite cool, and I got to chat with William Whitney's kids. One of them is actually doing some YouTube videos, and these are like top productions. I'm telling you, like the he's got like a cell phone, and he's doing like some really cool stuff on YouTube, and producing music and things like that. And he gets to do that in homeschool, which is interesting. Because I don't remember getting that opportunity in public school. Probably you don't get those opportunities in public schools because it's designed to make you a cog in their system. And oh God forbid you run around the classroom, because then you've got ADHD and ADD and you need to be medicated. Anyway, so smaller class sizes. We're all for smaller class sizes. And Unit 5 tried to pitch that the referendum was, if it were to pass, that there would be better student to teacher ratios. I have never heard of an issue with student to teacher ratios for classrooms until this Cedar Ridge incident, where they tried to sneak this document into kids' backpacks, which is a whole nother issue in itself. Why are we not communicating with parents effectively? And you're stuffing documents about their class sizes into their backpacks. At the end of the day, a first grader is not going to decide whether or not he goes to Sugar Creek or Fairview Elementary. It's up to the parents. And that's what the document said. It was calling on parents to volunteer to go to Fairview Elementary or to go to Sugar Creek and take their kids there for the 2023 and 2024 school year to reduce the first grade class sizes at Cedar Elementary. That's what the document said. And, I just love how the superintendent, they're like, oh, well, we won't take blame for this. We're not going to take blame. We're going to shift blame. And we're going to say that it's because you parents didn't enroll your kids on time, which I don't understand how that could be an excuse. Like they said that Cedar Ridge was on the bubble and that they were aware of it, but they felt like it was going to be okay. If it was on the bubble, you would think that they would be trying to actively, seek out parents who might want to volunteer prior to registration ending and prior to the school year starting, because now you've got to move the kids all the way to another school prior to the school year starting. You would think that they would be like, okay, they're at Cedar Ridge is on the bubble. What we're going to do is start advertising. We're going to start reaching out to parents. We're going to start trying to fill this teaching position. So apparently, there is a teaching position out there that needs filling. They're having a difficult time filling that position. I don't know why, especially considering that they get paid about average, or well, above average almost, Illinois teaching salary. Um, it's above the national average, mind you. Teachers get paid above the national average a lot of times. I don't know why they're having such a hard time filling that position, but they said it's due to building constraints and finding somebody to fill that position. So they're unable to add an additional first grade section at this time. That's what they say. That is the solution, but they decided to not go with the solution. Like, start advertising for that position. You just got, like, what was it? 12 million extra dollars? Come on. And you said on your website, it's there on the Unit 5 website, it says if the referendum passes, that means better student to teacher ratios for academic success. It's very clear what's going on here. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at them. They are never going to actually use it for what they say they're going to use it for. I would say that recently the school board approving these contracts with the teachers union, the Unit 5 Education Association, the UFEA, they just reached a new agreement, and full-time staff, they're going to be starting out at $40,000, and that's going to increase to $42,000 by 2027. Plus, there's all kinds of benefits and things like that. The superintendent gets a salary increase. So, really, we know what that money was for. It's to line the pensions and to line the salaries of those teachers, superintendent, staff at Unit 5, and it wasn't going to go towards the kids. I said that from the very beginning. This Unit 5 tax referendum is not going to be used to the benefit of the children. It's going to be used to the benefit of the staff, um, and a staff that, mind you, underperforms. Okay, time and time again. I haven't looked at Unit 5s. I know it's below all of the averages, below standards, right? Below national standards, reading comprehension, math scores, just much like the rest of the state. Okay. Um, I wouldn't doubt. I think it's like, but yet they're all graduating, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. They can't read at grade level, but they can graduate. I don't understand it. I'll be right back. Let's talk Ken Paxton. That's where we're at. Ken Paxton. He was attacked, and he was attacked by the Biden administration lawyers. And they were actually sent down to be a part of this impeachment investigation in Texas. Okay. And he was on Tucker Carlson. I got to tell you about this. But first, I did want to tell you about a good news story. Okay. I like doing these like weird news stories um, for your Friday, these interesting news stories. So here's one. This amateur poker player in California has admitted to lying about having colon cancer in order to collect thousands of dollars in donations so that way he could play in a World Series of poker tournaments in Las Vegas. So he was lying about colon cancer in order to get all of these monies and to get these thousands of dollars to go gamble it away in Las Vegas. Real scumbag, this Rob guy. So Rob told the Las Vegas Review Journal he made up the stage 4 colon cancer diagnosis for his GoFundMe page in June because he needed to meet the $10,000 buy-in for the No Limit Hold'em World Championship. He ended up collecting more than $30,000 and a free hotel stay at this hotel in Las Vegas. So he ended up collecting a lot of money, more than the $10,000 buy-in. $30,000. So he profited $20,000 plus he got a hotel. But then all of a sudden he was stricken with guilt and he decided to come clean. Yeah, so he goes to this publication, talks about how he lied about his stage 4 colon cancer diagnosis. He said, "I did lie about having colon cancer. I don't have colon cancer. I used that to cover my situation. What I did was wrong. I should have told people. Uh, I shouldn't have told people that I had colon cancer. I did that just as a spur of the moment thing when someone asked me what kind of cancer I had. But just because he admitted to lying doesn't mean he wants to give the money back. That's the key issue here. So, in fact, he says he still intends to keep the money because he believes he has undiagnosed breast cancer. He thinks that he does actually have cancer now. However, GoFundMe has informed him that he was in violations of his terms and services and that everyone who donated has received an email telling them that they're going to be refunded. So GoFundMe is actually behind the refunds here. So this was an interesting story. This lying gambler is a real loser. uh, you may not have cancer, or you may not have cancer, but you're a real sicko, pal. I know he likes poker, but this was more of a crapshoot. Ah. um, you never lie about having a disease like cancer unless you want uh, to invite someone really bad karma. Okay, so like he's going to have some karma now. So now he thinks that he actually has cancer of some kind, that he has like some sort of breast cancer, which is interesting. But he's not. He said that he wasn't going to give the money back because he thinks that he actually has cancer now. GoFundMe said, "Screw you! You violated all of these terms and services, and we're going to refund the people anyway. They're $10,000." So I mean, either way, the guy came out with $20,000 profit. So, yeah, even with the refunds issued, it still kind of sucks because he still gets to keep that $20,000. Um, I'll be right back. This is the Morning Buzz. Poor Ken Paxton. He was just acquitted during an impeachment trial that wrapped up over this past weekend, and he sat down with Tucker Carlson for his first ever interview since these proceedings. And before I get into Ken Paxton's story, I listened to the entire interview that Tucker Carlson did with Ken Paxton, and all I kept thinking was what happened here in the town of Normal. So people were circulating petitions to try to get a question onto the ballot. And if you get so many signatures, then that question is to appear on the ballot. That's the way the rule goes. But it's not the way that went. It's not the way it went here in the town of Normal. So the town of Normal, the actual town, so Mayor Chris Coos, Kevin McCarthy on the town council, and a bunch of others, right? They actively stopped this question being appearing on the ballot. The question was, shall the town be divided up into 8 different districts? That's what Bloomington has. They have a ward system, and what that does, it takes it from an at-large government, and it makes the government a little bit smaller, and there's more representation. You get to have your own representative in your district, so in your neighborhood, you know exactly who to go to. I like the idea of 8 districts. However, they stopped it. The town, Mayor Chris Coos, Kevin McCarthy, and the others, all of them stopped it. The town clerk said, nah, you can't do that because we're an incorporated town. Okay, so now the citizens, the people of Normal, the Normalites, they have to go back to the drawing board, okay? And then they're like, okay, they said that we're an incorporated town. Well, let's look at this. We want more representation. At the end of the day, that's what we want. Turns out, an incorporated town via state statute, it says that you have to have these positions be elected. So, town supervisor, town clerk, assessor, things like that. There were a few positions that you needed to have be elected if you classify yourself as an incorporated town, which Normal did classify themselves as an incorporated town under the law. They said, "Hey, we can't have districts because we're an incorporated town. Sorry, that question can't come get onto the ballot." Uh, so we said, "Okay, well, the Normalites went back and they started circulating petitions for a few individuals to run in these positions: town clerk, town assessor, town supervisor, these types of things." They submit their petitions, and then the town of Normal says, no, 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 you can't do that." Well, why not? Well, let's take it to court. And you guys are starting to be a real thorn in our side. So what we're going to do is hire an attorney, a lawyer, with your money, your taxpayer money. You guys have to fund your lawyer, whatever way you think you can, and we're going to fund our lawyer with your money. So you have to pay for your representation and our representation, because we're going to use the taxpayer money to get this Michael Madigan attorney to come down from Chicago and to represent us in this matter. And then we've got Judge Fellheimer siding with the town of Normal over this issue. And eventually he rules that because of home rule, Normal doesn't have to follow the state statute. Okay. And then get this, they get a friendly legislator, Sharon Chung, in the 91st district, and they decide, hey, that was like really close. We almost lost our power over the Normalites for a quick second. We almost had too much representation. We almost allowed the people to elect some representation onto the Normal Town Council and within the Normal government. That was too close for comfort. What we're going to do is find a friendly legislator, and she's going to change the law that we broke. And now it's enshrined into law, a law that a bill produced by Sharon Chung, a Democrat. Now it's enshrined into law that Normal can operate outside of that state statute that says incorporated towns over 25,000 people have to have these 3 elected positions. So this all kind of played out, what happened to Ken Paxton, here in the town of Normal. That's all I kept thinking about while I was listening to this. I was like, they did this. They did this to us. They did this to the people. So they've already done it. The Democrat Party has already done it to the people. If they'll do it to Ken Paxton, they'll do it to you, and they have, if you're a normal citizen. So, what happened to Ken Paxton? Well, I guess there was like some sort of accusation that he misused campaign donations. I think I don't know. I don't even really know it because it was a really confusing impeachment trial because they were very vague in it. But Paxton revealed, much like what the town of Normal did to you, Paxton revealed that these Biden administrations played a role in this impeachment because what they did, the House committee investigating team that was trying to impeach Ken Paxton, the attorney general in Texas, what they did, they hired lawyers with taxpayer money, Texas taxpayer money, and these lawyers were Biden DOJ lawyers. And they came down and then they actively tried to politically persecute Ken Paxton for simply going after the Biden administration for unconstitutional executive orders. And he was winning, folks. So the courts were upholding, hey, yeah, Joe Biden is unconstitutional here. He's unconstitutional here, 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 here. There were 48 lawsuits that Ken Paxton was working on to go after the Biden administration for all of his unconstitutional crap. And he was winning 77% of those cases. The Biden administration, they were like, gosh, this Ken Paxton guy, he's just a thorn in our side. We're going to have to call out the big guns. We're going to get our lawyers from the DOJ. We're going to send them down there. And we're going to use the taxpayer money in Texas to pay those lawyers to go after Ken Paxton. So let's take a listen here. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can see the actual video itself. And I want to play this other clip from the interview because I think it's important. Here we go.
Taxpayer dollars to prosecute you, but you can't use taxpayer dollars to defend
I was
yourself.
not afforded legal representation by the state while I was out.
I mean, even rapists get legal representation paid
Think
for
about
by
how
the
many
state.
people survive just that. You have no money, you have no lawyers, you have no ability to speak, and you're up against a force that's already done an investigation, they already have information, and you don't have any of their information. You don't even know really what the charges are because even the articles were very vague. They didn't identify elements of a crime. So then we have to like figure out like, what is it? Some were so vague, we didn't even know what they meant. Like,
But if I go kill someone, which I don't plan to do, but if I did,
yeah,
and I'm indigent, I have no money, the state pays for my legal defense, correct?
if you can't afford it, yes.
Yes. And I get to defend myself if I want. I get to say I'm innocent of
Yes.
what I'm being charged with, right?
That's correct.
And I'm accused of murder.
Yes.
And you were accused, I think, of getting like a new countertop in your house from a developer or
Yes.
something.
Other things like that. Yes.
Yeah. Huh. So how did this happen? So again, I want to get back to.
So there you have it. He talks about how he wasn't even afforded, representation, and there's murderers in the state of Texas who get more representation than what Ken Paxton got. And, in the interview, he talks about how the Wall Street Journal, they actually tried to go to the Wall Street Journal to get the Wall Street Journal to print their side of things, but they wouldn't. And, you're dealing with it as a normal citizen. And that's my point here today is there's local media that took the side of the town of Normal in that situation, although the state statute was very clear about what incorporated towns are allowed to have or should have. It's not even allowed, it's what they should have by law are these 3 positions be elected. And we had people in the media here locally advocate for the town in that situation and not the people. I've got to take a quick break, but when we come back, I've got some more information for you. Specifically, I think I'm going to get to this story here. It's about Pornhub. So there was an undercover journalist. We did an exclusive interview. If you missed that, you can find it on my YouTube channel. That's Kat Peterson 929. Now she she talked with us about Pornhub and how they actually have this loophole where these people don't have to report the ages of the people who are featured in the videos that they upload. I've got more information on that story. It gets worse here next on The Buzz. All right, folks, I'm not going to be able to get to the Pornhub story, but I'll give it just the quick hits for you here on the Morning Buzz coming up in just a second. But the Pornhub movie. So this guy is named Farley, and that's no shocker that Pornhub deleted almost 80% of its videos in December of 2020 after these allegations that it was infested with child abuse. Okay, so they deleted all of this back in 2020. These allegations are not anything new. Pornhub is at the center of this backlash from people because now it's been exposed that they have a loophole in their video uploading. Um, where you don't have to age verify people in the video. So they are profiting off of children being used in pornographic imagery. Um, and they don't care. And they doubled down on this after journalists from the Secret Sound investigations. It's like a undercover journalist exposed that Pornhub was using this loophole and users exploited this loophole to upload illegal content. Uh, we'll be back. Hold on just one sec. Good morning, folks. This is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. Now, this is a huge story. The Pornhub story. So I talked with an undercover journalist exclusively about how Pornhub was caught on camera talking about a loophole where users on Pornhub would exploit and upload illegal content. Okay, so there was this MindGeek employee. That's the parent company of Pornhub. His name is Mike Farley, and he was caught. And now Sound Investigations, which is this undercover journalist operation, has released a second video secretly recording Mike Farley and another employee, Dylan Rice, who also works for MindGeek for over the past 5 years as a senior script writer. So they get out there and they're on tape again. And then they say that they don't really care. They're not taking the allegations seriously. And he is caught on tape, this Farley fellow, again saying this: we don't have the consent of that person and we're running ads. And as a business, we're monetizing content that we don't know where it really comes from. We don't know who's on that video. We don't know the age of the person in that video, but who cares? That's essentially what he says in this undercover video with this Sound Investigations reporter. An incredible story. It's like they just don't care and they think that they can do this. They gave a weak response to Sound Investigations. We're going to publish their response to Sound Investigations, both their undercover videos. Wow. It's a very weak response, and they claim that they have a set standard for compliance. I don't know what that means, but we're going to post it on our Facebook page. That's going to do it for me this morning on the Morning Buzz. We'll do it again Monday morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. You guys have a great rest of your Friday. Tomorrow is the first day of fall, so celebrate with a pumpkin spice latte or something for me, huh? All right, bye-bye. Love you.